This is going to be an ongoing series about what books to read if you're a reader and interested in fashion as well. I would suggest a lot of biographies and autobiographies. That's how you learn the background information of a company's history. That's how you learn the cool details of how they built the company, how their creativity works. You learn all kinds of juicy details. So the first book I would recommend is this biography on Coco Chanel by Justine Picardi. It's got really glossy pages and some pictures as well. I love this book. It's not cut and dry at all like some biographies can be. It's separated into chapters about the little black dress, how Chanel came out with the number 5 perfume, the white dresses she liked. It has a chapter about her origins and her walking through the monastery where Chanel lived for a time, and that might have influenced the Chanel logo. It's really interesting read, and if you're interested in the Chanel company or Coco Chanel, I would definitely get this book. And I've read other Chanel biographies, but so far this is the best one I've read. It has come out in a new printing, so it might have a different cover now. But regardless, you need this book if you're at all interested in Chanel. And speaking of the Chanel company, after Coco died, the company kind of stagnated a bit until Karl Lagerfeld came around. He really resurrected the company, boosted sales, and stayed there for years and years and years. He was actually a kid growing up in Germany during World War II. And after the war ended, Christian Dior went and held a fashion collection in Germany. And Karl Lagerfeld happened to go with his mother there and saw it. And that's kind of what spurred his journey on into fashion. So it's a really weird twist of fate there. And then it goes on, about him with the Chanel company and, feuds with other designers. And he also talks about, how Lagerfeld was not content with just designing. He liked to create these big sets for the fashion shows. He'd create whole concepts. He'd even photograph some of the ad campaigns. He just worked all the time and was really good at what he did. So this would be the second book I would read after the Coco Chanel book if you're interested in the Chanel company. Now, if you're interested in Gucci, and you might have watched The House of Gucci, well, this book is what the movie was based on. I read it before the movie came out, so I had a little bit better idea of what was going on behind the scenes, what the movie doesn't show, kind of the dynamics of what's going on behind the scenes with the family who's trying to take over the company. It's money, it's power. You read all this in the book about Tom Ford coming to Gucci. You get all the little details that aren't in the movie in this book. So I would highly suggest reading it if you love that movie and you're interested in Gucci and how the Gucci family lost the company, and essentially true crime, because it does end with a murder. And if you like Dior, this is an autobiography by Christian Dior about himself. It doesn't necessarily hold too many private things about him. Like we get to see, how he grew up, what his inspirations were, but he still seems a bit of a mystery even after you read this book. But it will show, he grew up privileged in France and then started out trying to sell art, and then started working for some fashion companies under some other designers. And World War II came. They wanted to take fashion out of France and move it to Germany. They managed to keep it in France, saying it wouldn't be like, you know, couture fashion, if it wasn't in France, managed to keep that in France. And then Dior, after the war, set up his own label. So this is really interesting if you love the Dior brand. If you're more into surrealism, you'll like this book about Elsa Schiaparelli. It's also an autobiography about her. She was a direct competitor to Chanel. She actually grew up in Italy, came to America with a husband, and then the husband left her and she had a kid, and then she went to France, started trying to get her career off the ground by, you know, a lot of roundabout means. She ended up being successful, but she was big into surrealism with the artists like Cocteau and Dali. She worked closely with all of them, and it's really fun read. She talks about herself from the third person. Actually, she doesn't say I. She refers to herself by Scap. But you will recognize Schiaparelli just from the past few years. Daniel Rosenberry has brought the Schiaparelli brand back into the public eye. The last few years, it kind of the brand kind of shut down after Elsa Schiaparelli retired, and then kind of just sat there. It was tried to be resurrected by a few different people, and that just didn't work. But a guy from Texas came along, and he's been slaying all these looks, and they've been all over the red carpet. But this is where it all started. So if you're interested in high fashion, I would definitely suggest starting with these few books, and I'll do a part 2 at a later date. But those are some really good fashion books to get started with.